Yes. I think you'll hear me better. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tracy Glab, and I'm the Curator of Collections and Exhibitions at the Flint Institute of Arts, and it's my great pleasure today to welcome you to this talk by artist Ed Watkins in conjunction with the exhibition, wait for it, there it is, Drawing from Life, Ed Watkins, which is now on view in our graphics gallery through April 10th. And if you haven't been there, and I'm going to ask why not, you need to go right now. No, not right now. After the talk. You just leave the theater, turn right, turn a quick right again down the hallway, and you'll run right into it. So it's a fabulous exhibition. Before I introduce the artist, I have a few announcements to make. We would like to take the opportunity to thank the Bray Charitable Trust, who sponsored this lecture. Thank you to the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, whose continued support enables the FIA to provide so many memorable exhibitions and educational programs. I would also like to thank Huntington Bank, who sponsors our Huntington Free Saturdays, offering free admission to all our galleries and special exhibitions. And a very big thank you to the citizens of Genesee County for the Genesee County Arts Education and Cultural Enrichment Millage, which provides free entry to the FIA for Genesee County citizens. Thank you to all. I would also like to invite you to a free program that's happening in 2 weeks from today as part of the Sons Seeing the Modern African American Male exhibition. We are hosting a panel discussion with 4 men featured in the exhibition, who you see on the screen: Bob Campbell, DeAndre Chilton, Bryant Nolden, and Glenn Wilson. And the moderator for the talk is Matt Franklin, ABC 12's Matt Franklin. I hope to see you there this time next week in 2 weeks, or this in two weeks. March 2nd, March 5th. I'm going to stop talking. All right, it's on the screen. March 5th, 2 p.m., and right here in this theater. As a reminder, please silence your cell phones. Take a moment to do that right now. And now it's my distinct pleasure to introduce you to Ed Watkins. For almost 40 years, Flint native Ed Watkins has taught visual arts and design, which emphasizes the importance of observational skills practiced in life drawing classes. For Watkins, however, drawing from life is not just a necessary technical skill, but it's how he defines his practice, using his personal observations and life experiences, which you'll hear about today, to guide what he creates. The exhibition, Drawing from Life, includes drawing and mixed media artworks that are inspired by the artist's African American experience, exemplifying moments of reflection, celebration, healing, and despair. Watkins received his bachelor and master in education degrees from Bowling Green State University. He's a retired adjunct professor at Mott Community College, having taught classes in visual arts and design. Please join me in giving a warm Flint welcome to Ed Watkins.
Good afternoon. And this is the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. I'm Ed Watkins, and today I'm going to be talking about drawing from life. I want to thank the Flint Institute of Arts, Tracy Glab, Curator of Collections and Exhibitions, for presenting my work to the Board of Trustees here at FIA. I want to thank my wife, Marcia, for her love and support. Thanks go to my family, my church family, friends. Thank you all for being here today. I've been blessed to enjoy some 50 years of being a working artist. I've been married for 46 years to my wife, Marcia, a fantastic artist in her own right. We have raised 2 children. Go right ahead. We have raised 2 children who are artists and mentoring 2 artistic grandchildren. I don't have enough time to share the journey Marcia and I have been on as artists. And our experiences can't be separated one from another. I do want to take this time to share with you a few points. Who influenced my journey as a black artist and teacher, what affected my consciousness as a black man in America, and the thinking process behind the work in the gallery. I'm going to adjust this just a tad. Choosing to be an artist is not a profession most people understand or sometimes even respect as a career. I remember when I came in the front room and announced to my parents I wanted to be an artist, and they said, "Boy, please, you'll starve to death." But I didn't. Being a visual artist for me, it requires a great deal of self-belief, perseverance, constant practice, technical skill, serious drawing aptitude, computer software knowledge, and imagination. It demands conceptual thinking and creative problem solving, much like what's happening here in this drawing with Paula, pulling strands of hair and knitting a new man. I have always been a visual thinker. Growing up in school, I would translate visually what I observed and heard. And most of the time, I got in trouble for drawing on my papers. But I learned I was a visual learner. I grew to understand this was a gift to interpret words visually. And I learned that it was okay to be a visual note taker. As I go through this presentation, I probably will stop occasionally to describe the motivation behind a piece of work and maybe the technique, and then move on. Also, if you have any questions, there'll be time afterwards to ask those, and I'll do my best to answer them. This exhibition is about what I see, what I hear, observed encounters, moments of reflection. I'm a visual storyteller. I'm a figurative artist who needs to be rooted in real life for my stories to have any impact. And art should respond to life. This mixed media drawing is a response to the killing of Michael Brown and the resulting riots in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014. This exhibition is about social issues, racial divides, shootings, the death of Breonna Taylor, all the way to George Floyd. The Black Lives Matter. This drawing was inspired by the Black Lives Matter Detroit Will Breathe March in 2020, organized by Tristan Taylor, who's the subject of this. But the reference photo was taken by a former photography student of mine, Ryan Gaza, who now works for the Detroit Free Press. Nonetheless, these illustrative journeys mentally got me through the pandemic, the frustration, the tears, still not trusting the water, the death of loved ones, the isolation, dealing with the anxiety of the election, the insurrection, the vaccines. Just seeing my way through 2020 and 2021, I'm here because of grace, mercy, and the gift to make things visual. The title of this exhibition is Drawing from Life. For those of us in the art teaching world, this is a phrase meaning a class in life drawing. Learning how to draw from by observation, looking at something physically and drawing it. I use a human figure as my subject in my work, but this afternoon, I want to share with you about drawing from life, observational work that has been inspired by the distinctive spiritual nature of my African American experience. It's about images that have emerged from what I heard, from what I observed, social issues, teaching young artists. It is these encounters with life that drive me to develop and create these subjective images on paper. I would like to think the complexity of the work is not in the technique, but in the ideas behind them. Speaking of technique, here's a look at the materials and tools that I use to speak through my own creative voice. This is a picture of my table. I work in mixed media. That means I use a variety of medium to create art. I'll talk a tad more about that later. The ideas behind the work, how I get from idea to finished artwork, again, when I see a moment, I hear something I want to creatively respond to, I start doodling. Much like you see here. In fact, I create a map, a blueprint. I do this for almost every work of art. Sometimes even before that, it's words first, a written account that turns into visual note-taking, a felt attitude about the subject, its placement in space. Even I visualize a medium in an expressive order. I try to become highly attuned to the subject or the issue. In the case of this example, this one up here, I happen to be at a church event. And the week before that, our pastor was talking about how ravens were used to send food to Elijah to keep him alive. And here we are during the pandemic, we're giving out food. And all of a sudden, here comes my imagination. Here's a photograph. Here's the idea. There's a sermon. There's the work of art. Again, I try to be highly attuned to subjects and issues. This word first, picture second approach of writing, doodling, seeing, feeling, these relationships create what I call a responsive basis for interpretation. Once I get there, I'm now ready to move these observations from my head to paper. When I was teaching drawing, one approach to get students to understand the process of entering a drawing was using a gestural expressive line, like you see here. This is sort of a gestural expression line. It is this responsive, rhythmic, gestural expressive line movement that helps me enter a drawing. You see, I don't draw from the outside in, I draw from the inside out. I'm looking at what the subject is doing, not what it is. I got this concept from several sources, but one of my professors at Bowling Green, Tom Hilty, he taught me how to curiously look at a line rhythmically moving across an edge of an object in space and develop a relationship with it. A good metaphor for this relationship, it's from Francine Jay's book, Joy of Less. It is the space between the notes in music that allows them to resonate, reverberate, and reach their full measure of expression. Without this space, noise will result. Well, it's the same relationship between the medium that I use to create a work of art, musical instrument, the message. It could be the line, the rhythm, the emotion that allows me to enter a drawing. It's the difference between the mature artist and the beginner. You can learn to play the notes on the page, but it's the space between them is where the rhythm, the mood, the emotion, the message comes from. I just saw my grandson last night at a concert. He plays the upright bass. He's learning how to play the bass, but he's learning how to read the music, strike the right note, follow in time, but the music becomes a part of him when he understands the message, the pauses between the notes that create the rhythm that speaks through the music. This expressive line generates, for me, the space between life, the heartbeat, my drawing's underskeleton. If I could just pull away all the stuff from my finished drawings, you would see this rhythm, this shape relationship, this movement, much like you see here, okay? I don't erase. I restate. I layer and move. I layer and move. I don't erase. I don't want to lose the heartbeat, the energy. This is how I engage, how I sustain the drawing process to get to finished work. In this drawing, I photographed Leo Smith, a friend, because I knew him. He understood where I was going with this story, pick up your bed. He had the posture, the expression, the gestural walk I needed to bring life to this drawing. I will often use people that I know that I think will help me tell the story. I'm also a photographer, so I will go out and shoot my own references. What has influenced my work? I'm an accumulation of my experiences in America, and that's reflected in the landscape of my work. I use my personal work as resource to construct meaning and understanding for myself, and maybe in some naive way, possibly play back that meaning to you, the viewer. While some African American or black artists desire to be referred to simply as an artist, I have always desired to make my African American or black experience the center of my practice as a fine artist. Speaking of experience, growing up in Flint, a series of civil rights events in the 60s changed my life forever.
To do that, you'll need to be...
No Siri.
Siri.
No Siri. Shh, quiet. Okay. Civil rights events in the 60s changed my life forever. God, just aside, 1960 and Siri. Look how far we have gone, my God. Okay, but these experiences changed my life forever and influenced my artwork. My parents taught us kids how to be proud of who we are. I was raised in Flint during the 50s and 60s, and they taught us that life isn't fair. If you wanted something different, then sitting on the sidelines wasn't an option. In 1963, as a family, we walked with thousands in the Walk to Freedom in Detroit, led by Dr. Martin Luther King. That was about 4 months before King's March on Washington. Some of you might be old enough to remember our parents had us involved in the 1967 open housing protest in Flint, a 10-day sleep-in on the lawn of City Hall. At that time, African Americans were denied the opportunity to buy a house in certain Flint neighborhoods. And as a result of that, the open housing ordinance was voted on and narrowly passed in February of 1968. These are some of the things that influenced my thinking about who I am, okay, or what I was. In 1967, in high school at Southwestern, was the time of the Detroit riots. In April of 1968, there was the Chicago riots sparked by the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. There was anti-war protests and riots in August of 1968 at the Democratic Convention in Chicago. In that October that same year, there was Tommie Smith and John Carlos black glove raised fists at the 1968 Olympics. It was a serious time in America, and the music and the arts reflected it. Going to college at Bowling Green in 1968 influenced me as a person and my visual thinking. There we formed the Bowling Green Black Student Union in 1969. Black students organized, knowing we needed more academic support, changes in recruitment of minority students, ethnic studies programs, a high school upward bound program, student development programs, and much more. As a result, that fall of 1970, we more than doubled the number of black students on campus. And I'm kind of ashamed to say, I chased this beautiful, as a result, black woman across campus for weeks from the freshman dorm to the art building before she even gave me a minute of her time. Other influences. In the spring of 1970, Richard Nixon had said he was going to end the war in Vietnam, but instead decided to send troops to invade Cambodia. That started war protests on every college campus in America. That May of 1970, during a student anti-war rally at Kent State University, National Guard troops, there to keep the peace, opened fire on protesters, killing 4 and wounding 9. We felt the effects of that all the way to Bowling Green, Ohio. Invasion. My creative influences. One of my early creative influences was Harlem Renaissance artist Aaron Douglas. He was a 1920s jazz age artist who worked in an Art Deco style. His stylized figures and elements of Egyptian wall motif in his work was fascinating. That's Aaron Douglas's work there. That stylized style will sometimes show up in my graphic design work. But my main creative influence in the 1970s was artist Charles White. I came across a book that had a collection of his drawings in it titled Images of Dignity. It was a book of the most powerful drawings I have ever seen. His work just spoke to me. I was captivated by his skillful portrayal of strong physical and emotional figurative images. That's the book. Now, there's actually an original Charles White painting in the hallway outside the gallery where my work is at. It's titled Wanted Poster Number 7. Here's another Charles White painting, Black Pope, Sandwich Board Man, 1973. Commands the viewer's attention with a sandwich board sign reading, "Now." White often was described as a social realist artist. His work played a role in black Americans seeing themselves. I even remember an Ebony magazine that had a series of drawings on the cover. I think I looked at that until the cover wore off. Charles White, though, his work was about social issues. He said, art must be an integral part of the struggle. You can't simply just mirror what's going on or what's taking place. The fact is, artists have always been propagandists. Charles White was also a gifted and dedicated teacher. In 2019, a story published by the Museum of Modern Art magazine titled, "If You Know, Teach, Charles White as Teacher," said that he approached teaching as another mode of representing African American history, humanity, power, a way of extending his goals of his personal artistic practice. A number of white students continue to refer to his teaching as they pursue their own art careers. On the right here, Kerry James Marshall credits White for helping him identify a greater sense of meaning and purpose in his work. David Hammond, it was White's commanding presence, his accessibility to offer immediate guidance. Hammond said he was the only artist that really related, or I related to, because he is black and I'm black. But plus physically seeing him and knowing him. Now, me understanding this and understanding it early, I wanted to be a teacher and make work that was about something. Work that was culturally, socially, and politically aware. Work that started conversations about issues and ideas. Another teaching influence. I had the great privilege in the fall of 1971 to do my student teaching at predominantly black Scott High School in Toledo, Ohio. My mentor was the renowned black sculptor and art educator, LaMaxie Glover. Glover felt teachers, like doctors, had a professional oath to fulfill. Where their services are needed, they should comply. In 1968, when racial tensions were running high in Toledo, he asked to be transferred to Scott High School because he felt he was needed there. And during my time student teaching under him, Glover made sure I understood this kind of commitment if I was going to become a teacher. Glover was also the first African American named to the faculty of Cranbrook Academy of Art in Bloomfield Hills, the same place in 1955 that he got his master's in fine art. Another life lesson. The summer term of 1972, I had finished my athletic career and was completing a degree at Bowling Green in art education. That same summer, I was accepted to the graduate school of Bowling Green. I also got my draft notice, and it was, don't collect bachelor's degree, go straight to military service. By the grace of God, I discovered I could join the United States Marine Corps. They allowed me to take a 6-month delay, so I accepted the graduate assistantship, received my bachelor's degree, finished half a master's degree before going to boot camp training. I did my initial training, returned to Bowling Green, got married in 1975, worked in corporate America before Marcia and I decided in 1977 to come to Flint to teach young artists in high school, raise a family, and create art. Marcia taught art at Beecher High School and later earned a master's in fine art at Michigan State University and became a 10-year associate professor in fine art at the University of Michigan, Flint. During her 17 years there, she taught 17 different classes in the fine art department. You know, I sometimes take my education at Bowling Green for granted. But one of the things that they taught us how to do everything, okay? As fine artists, we learned how to work in every medium and teach every medium. One of my early motivations to become an art teacher was influenced by Flint art educator John Nash. Maybe some of you may know him. The summer before going to college in 1968, he helped me get my first teaching experience. I was the art activities person on the children's wing of Hurley Hospital. Now, that's another story. By the end of the summer, they was calling me the playman. Here comes the playman. Okay. But in my 40 years of teaching after returning to Flint, I taught a few thousand students in visual art, photography, and graphic design at Beecher, Flint's Genesee Area Skills Center, and Mott College. My students received scholarships and degrees from post-secondary and art schools in Flint, the state of Michigan, and all over the United States. My teaching philosophy was simple: teach students how to see, how to develop a visual curiosity that sustained them as artists and visual journalists. And I myself grew to realize that teaching, as Charles White said, was also creating new art by pouring into young artists, mentoring them, and giving them the tools to create those images dancing around in their head. You know, sometimes I guess I think I was a dream keeper. During my tenure, I have created work inspired by my students. Here is a few drawings of students employing Caravaggio's chiaroscuro drawing style, using contrasting light and darks to create atmosphere, drama, and emotion. That one even has a little Edward Harper lighting in it. I also needed to demonstrate for myself and some naysayers that I could walk the walk. So somewhere between all this teaching, I worked freelance as a graphic designer and illustrator. I did work for the Sloan Museum, the Flint Youth Theater, McCree Theater, a number of other places, just trying to hone my craft. From 1994 to 2000, I was a part-time editorial illustrator and page designer for the Flint Journal. I would literally leave the Skills Center at 2:30, get home, get something to eat, to get to the Flint Journal by 4 o'clock. I'd walk in the door and someone would hand me a story. Hey, Ed, we need this in about 2 hours. Can you come up with something for us? And 2 hours. I was lucky if it was 4, and hallelujah if it was the next day. But while I was there, I probably created well over 300 drawings in the 7 years that I was there. Again, I try to teach students how to see, how to come up with ideas, creative thinking, and problem solving. There's a couple of more pieces that I did at the Flint Journal. In 2007, I began to create a series of images at the beginning of pursuing a second master's in studio art at Eastern Michigan University. There I was focusing on mixed media, collage, and printmaking. Now, as I said before, printmaking is mixing mediums, charcoal with pastel, adding cut paper or torn paper collage, adding paint. One day I actually was messing with the students in class. They was frantically trying to figure out, what they were going to do with this assignment. And I'm outside. I see a few leaves on the ground. I pick them up. I bring them in. I slap some Jetsul on the piece I'm working with, and I smack the leaves in there. Had some twigs. But that's mixed media. That's what I did. I'm a responsive, intuitive drawer, intuitive artist. So this is some of the work here that I did during that period of time. This is a stone litho print. I liked what stone litho looked like when it was done, but when you get to using the chemicals and grinding the stones 50, 100 pounds, anything over there, you got to get a crane. Toxic, and it'll kill you. So I decided I needed to find something else. to do printmaking with. So between 2009 and 2015, I experimented with various printmaking techniques that were safe. Here's a few prints created on stone, metal, and polyester lithographic plates. Now, these are traditional lithographic prints created by drawing on a plate or surface, inking them by hand, matching paper to plate, and then rolling that through a press to create an image. Whoops, okay. It's a couple of more prints during that time. These two are polyester plates. This one is actually in the show. This is in FIA's collection. And I created this piece sitting on the back row in church and drawing, and then transferred that drawing to a plate. If you can see up close, you can see my gestural movement, my overlapping, my searching, my drawing from the inside out. When you enter this show, you will discover the beginnings of a series using the theme Romans 10:14. How should they hear without a preacher? This series titled Preach reflects my spiritual privilege of hearing and being moved by dynamic preachers, ministers, both men and women, in the moment of preaching the word. I leaned on this series, creating it through 2020 and 2021. I'm not only taking notes in church, but visually recording what I hear. You see, when I hear a sermon, I also see it. There's a poem by Edgar Guest entitled The Sermons We See. Edgar was a Michigan Poet Laureate. Kind of goes like this. I would rather see a sermon than hear one any day. I would rather one should walk with me than merely tell me the way. The eyes are a better pupil and more willing than the ear. Fine counsel is confusing, but examples always clear. And the best of all preachers are the ones who live their creed. For to see good put to action is what everybody needs. I soon can see you do it or learn to do it if you let me see it done. I can watch your hands in action, but your tongue too fast may run. And the lecture you deliver may be very wise and true, but I'd rather get my lesson by observing what you do. Edgar Guest goes on to say I would rather see a sermon than to hear one any day. When I'm at church, I'm a visual note taker. I generally see a sermon than to hear one any day. This Preach series of drawings will continue to evolve from moments I have photographed, messages I have heard in church and other churches. God knows I'm no theologian, but I am the person sitting in the pews on Sunday. I'm in your Sunday school class. I'm the usher at the door. I'm the one who attends and records ministry events. I'm the one listening to theologians, bringing forth the word. I'm the one searching to understand it all. I visually see what I hear. I'm a visual learner. This exhibition is about drawing from life, observational work that has been inspired by the distinctive spiritual nature of my African American, my Black experience thus far. Thank you. I hope you have a little bit more insight as to why I do what I do. Thank you.